Let's start. Okay. Welcome again, everyone. I appreciate all the inputs from the speakers and the panelists from last session. Now we are entering the second session, AI streamlining the workflow. So in my humble opinion, using AI to streamline the workflow is the most intuitive and down to the earth. In the AI era, they like to call the vertical application. So with the excitement, I would like to introduce our exceptional speakers and their presentation. So first presentation will be presented by Mr. Senthil Kumar. Mr. Senthil Kumar currently leads the digital and process excellence team at the Dr. Reddy laboratory, focusing on API, same moleculars and biologics generics product development. He will talk about harnessing AI for transforming generic pharmaceutical value chain, a regulatory-focused peptide product. Then second presentation will be presented by Dr. Ragan Jog. Dr. Ragan Jog is a senior scientific reviewer in the Office of Bioequivalence, OGD. He's an interdisciplinary scientist with over 14 years of a diverse research and review expertise. So he will talk about generic drug structured assessment, bioequivalence, and the advent of AI integration. Then third presentation will be done by myself. So let me introduce myself. I'm a team lead. Oh, actually, Lucy already introduced me. I can skip. So the next presentation will be presented by Dr. Joshua Apgar. Dr. Joshua Apgar is the VP, head of QSP software at Certara and the co-founder of the Applied Biomass. And he will talk about enhancing mechanistic modeling approach with generative AI. And after that will be, the speaker will be Dr. Pravin Jadhav. Dr. Pravin Jadhav is the CEO of Vivpro Corp, a provider of ROD, intelligence assistant, and AI-enabled document writing platform. He will share his insight on accelerate, de-risk, succeed in the age of AI. And the last presentation will be provided by Dr. Devin Pastoor. Dr. Devin Pastoor is a Chief Technology and Product Officer at A2AI, where he partners with life science organizations to develop end-to-end platforms for quantitative decision-making. He will share his thoughts on from idea to impact, streamlining AI integration across the enterprise. So with that, let's welcome Mr. Senthil Kumar, and he will present virtually. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Hope I am audible. Thank you, Meng, for your kind introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay. Today, I'm excited to talk about how we at Dr. Reddy's are leveraging AI for transforming generic pharmaceutical value chain with a special focus on peptide product development, a space that is both promising and complex. Here is what we will cover today: how AI is streamlining workflows in generic drug development. We will also talk about unique challenges of peptide product development, digital application across peptide value chain. We will also talk about our approaches for impurity prediction and mitigation using AI/ML model. Following that, we'll talk about molecular dynamics for peptide fibrillation prediction in order to ensure the long-term stability of the product, regulatory considerations for AI/ML integration, and Finally, a summary of our learnings and impact. So AI is revolutionizing across every stage of drug development, right from product selection, API and formulation development, scale-up, clinical management, regulatory and filing, manufacturing and supply chain management, commercial launch and strategy, till lifecycle management. So at Dr. Reddy's, we have enabled generative AI across each element of this value chain, such as GenAI-based design strategy is majorly used during the product development, using the in-house historical data and the literature support. GenAI-based report generation is majorly used across every stage of the product development. Whereas in the space of regulatory filing, GenAI automates the deficiency analytics in order to ensure to avoid any repeat deficiencies. During manufacturing, GenAI enables quality control and rapid investigation by automating the quality checks, identifying the anomalies real time, and providing the risk analysis or the root cause analysis. So this helps us to reduce the investigation time during manufacturing from days to hours. GenAI also supports predictive maintenance of the equipments using the sensor data and the trend data. So this helps us to avoid any downtime of the equipments and consistent quality batches during the manufacturing. So AI also analyzes the market trends and forecast the demand most accurately. This helps us our supply chain planning in order to avoid any stockouts or overproduction. Post launching the product, we use GenAI tools for the following applications such as market analysis and sales prediction, product strategy, and continuous cost improvement as a part of our lifecycle management. Whereas machine learning model is majorly used for product development, specifically for route of synthesis optimization for API and process optimization for both API and formulations development. In the space of clinical management, machine learning model helps us to predict efficacy, PK/PD, and toxicity even before starting the experiments, while digital twin supports the scale-up activity. This helps us to reduce the risk, improve the productivity during the manufacturing stage. So this digital ecosystem enables smarter science, faster decision, and enhanced efficiency across the department. In today's talk, we will focus majorly on application of AI for peptide product development. So I'll provide a brief overview before moving to the topic. So peptides are nothing but a short sequence of amino acids linked by the peptide bonds. So peptides are highly potent and specific, making them a unique target for treating diseases like metabolic disorders, cancers, cardiovascular diseases, infectious diseases, etc. So peptide can be synthesized by either recombinant DNA technology, which is scalable and cost-effective, or using the chemical synthesis method, such as solid and liquid phase method. The advantage of chemical synthesis is it could provide a precise sequence control and chemical modifications. However, peptide development is challenging because of its structural complexity, since peptide has an intrinsic folding property, and also it tends to form the secondary structure, which is highly sensitive for the environmental conditions. So complex synthesis and purification hurdles, specifically for purifying the impurities which are closely related to the product. Peptides are also known to undergo hydrolysis, oxidation, and fibrillation, which leads to the degradation risks. And it is also difficult to profile impurities specifically for the host cell protein kind of impurities, which is being generated as a part of recombinant DNA technology. Immunogenicity risk is another major challenge because even a minor trace of impurity can induce immunogenicity. Scale-up difficulties, as it is very important to ensure the consistent quality batches during manufacturing. Among them, the top two challenges are formation of immunogenic impurities and fibrillation, which impacts the safety and stability of the product. So regulatory guidelines are stringent, especially around impurity profiling, immunogenicity assessment for peptide-related impurities and post-cell-related impurities. It's also very important to ensure the physicochemical equivalence to the reference listed drug. Let's now explore how AI supports to overcome these challenges more systematically. I'll walk you through the application of AI across each element of peptide value chain. Shown here is the workflow for chemical-based peptide synthesis. And peptide end-to-end value chain has 7 major elements such as peptide development, optimization, scale-up and transfer, formulation, clinical and immunogenicity study, filing, and approval. So listed here are the must-to-do activity across each element in order to ensure the safety and productivity. We have built digital tool across each element to support these must-to-do activity, such as during synthesis, we use machine learning model to optimize the critical process parameter in order to improve the yield and reduce the impurities. The critical process parameters here could be optimizing the solvent conditions, the reaction temperature, reaction time, etc. For purification, machine learning model guides separating the rigid impurities, specifically for the impurities which are closely related to the product. So using ML model, we optimize the chromatography method conditions and the buffer conditions. In the space of scale-up, we use digital twin to simulate the optimal process parameters to ensure the quality batches coming up consistently during the manufacturing, and also to reduce the number of trial and error experiments. In the space of formulation, we use molecular dynamics tool to predict the fibrillation risk and the long-term stability of the product. Using the molecular dynamics tool, we could able to optimize the formulation condition and the storage buffer conditions. We have also built a machine learning based and a molecular modeling based in silico immunogenicity tool. So this tool helps us to predict the immunogenic impurities. So it is very important to identify the immunogenic impurities during the early stage of product development, which helps us to mitigate during the product development stage. And finally, AI automates dossier readiness for regulatory filing by including characterization equivalence data and the impurity profiling data more precisely and accurately. So this integrated approach helps us to enhance the quality, improve the efficiency, accuracy, and the compliance across the value chain. We spoke about 2 major challenges. Let me deep dive into the first challenge, which is formation of immunogenic impurities during synthesis. Shown here is our approach on identifying these impurities and mitigating using AI/ML model. This process involves 4 steps. In the first step, we have built a principle-based AI model to predict all possible 1000+ impurities for a given therapeutic peptide amino acid sequence. And these impurities could be either addition impurity, deletion impurity, truncation impurity, etc. Once we get a list of impurity, we use machine learning model to predict the immunogenic ones by analyzing the T cell epitopes and humanness. Post that, we confirm the binding with a 3-dimensional molecular modeling in an atomic level interaction between the impurities and the immune receptor. The unique part about the in silico immunogenicity model is we could able to predict the immunogenicity potential across global allele population. At this stage, after the first 3 stages, we get a comprehensive list of all possible immunogenic impurities for a given therapeutic peptide molecules. And we get an overall immunogenicity landscape of impurities for a given therapeutic peptides. Post that, we use machine learning model to optimize the critical process parameter for both synthesis and purification to mitigate these immunogenic impurities. This tight control mechanism helps us to ensure product safety by strategically eliminating immunogenic impurities. We have validated this approach with multiple peptide products with the most promising result. So in addition to impurity prediction and mitigation, we use the first three approaches to identify a peptide positive control for our adaptive immunogenicity study. Because one of the important ask or guidance from the agency is to include a peptide positive control with a similar length and structure of the therapeutic peptide product. This helps us to ensure the sensitivity of the assay most precisely. So using the steps 1, 2, 3, we could able to identify a peptide positive control which meets the criteria. Now moving to the second challenge, which is ensuring the long-term stability of the product. So peptide fibrillation is one of the major concerns which impact the stability of the product. And peptide fibrillation can also impact the therapeutic efficacy of the molecule, induces immunogenicity, and also reduces the shelf life. So traditionally, peptide fibrillation methods are mostly reactive, while the risk is being assessed only at the later stage of the product development. Whereas molecular dynamics simulation helps us to identify the risk at the much earlier stage during the product development, which helps us to mitigate them. So coming to modeling. So molecular dynamic tool is used to predict the three-dimensional structure of the peptide at various conditions such as temperature, pH, ionic strength, shear stress, etc. Because these conditions are known to impact the fibrillation risk. So with MD simulation, we could able to study the folding pattern of the product, aggregation pattern, and the destabilization risk over the period of time. Ideally, from an MD simulation, we get three major outcomes. The first one is the alpha helix, which indicates the integrity of the product, of the peptide molecule. Whereas the beta sheet, if there is a higher content of the beta sheet, then the fibrillation risk is on the higher side. Radius of gyration is nothing but the compactness or elongation of the peptide. For a given formulation condition, if MD simulation provides a result with a lower alpha helix, higher beta content, and higher radius of gyration, then that particular formulation condition is prone to induce fibrillation. So this helps us to avoid any unfavorable conditions which leads to fibrillation during synthesis, as well as it also helps us to optimize the formulation conditions. Other than optimizing the formulation conditions, so MD also predicts the long-term storage buffer conditions, which helps us to ensure the preciseness of the product throughout its shelf life. So we have validated this approach or this model with multiple peptide molecules with natural amino acids. So currently we are validating this model with complex peptides containing non-natural amino acids, fatty acids, side chains, etc. So regulatory alignment is very important for AI/ML adoption. So the FDA 2025 draft guidance outlines the requirements of credibility assessment, lifecycle maintenance of the AI model. So we prepare three key deliverables, such as credibility assessment plan by detailing the model design, data strategy, training methodology, and performance metrics. A credibility assessment report by documenting the validation outcomes and deviations. And finally, a lifecycle maintenance plan in order to ensure continuous monitoring and revalidation of AI model as data and process evolves. This ensures our AI models are regulatory ready and it's transparent. We also engage with regulators to co-build the best practices for AI in pharma. To summarize, we are driving digital transformation across Dr. Reddy's generic product development to deliver affordable and safe medicines to the patient needs. As we discussed in the previous slides, AI accelerates generic drug workflows right from product selection to filing for both small molecules as well as large molecules. Whereas the machine learning model and digital twin optimize synthesis, purification, and scale up during the product development stage. For peptide product development, we use AI/ML models to predict and mitigate immunogenic impurities, mitigate the fibrillation risk in order to enhance the safety and long-term stability of the product. With regulatory alignment, using FDA's AI/ML guidance, we are building a credible and future-ready digital ecosystem. In order to enable smarter science, efficient collaboration, faster approvals, and very importantly, a better patient outcome. So we believe this approach sets a new benchmark for innovation in generic drug development. With that, I conclude my talk. I would like to extend my thanks to Digital Process Excellence team, our colleagues at IPDO, and the leadership team for enabling this transformation. My sincere thanks to Saurabh Biswas, Sushruth Kulkarni, and Pani Mitra for their visionary leadership and unwavering support. And thank you all for your attention.
Thanks, Senthil, for the presentation. Our next speaker is Dr. Ragan Jog.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you have been engaged in a lot of interesting presentation in the first session. This is session 2 and talk 2. I'll be speaking on the generic drug structured assessment, bioequivalence, and advent of artificial intelligence integration. And on this slide, I have a small tag. So humans are afraid that AI will take away jobs, but I feel AI is afraid that humans will keep meetings. So with that, slide. So small disclaimer, this presentation reflects the views of the author and should not be construed to represent the US FDA's views of policy. So my presentation would include the architecture implementation status of the platform that we have been using since 2022. And then I'll also introduce to ELSA that have been discussed earlier in session 1. And then I'll also incorporate some OGD's AI initiatives and potential applications, and then I'll summarize. So the challenges with the past review processes that we have been facing is one, legacy assessment issues, that is freestyle narrative-based PE assessments have been in place for decades. And this creates a lot of inefficiencies and inconsistencies. Then we have process inefficiencies. So there are labor-intensive tasks for data processing, analysis, and information extraction that creates a lot of bottlenecks. And then it has discrete and complicated data analysis processes. Also, the knowledge management system that we have, which is lack of standardized practices for knowledge sharing and institutional memory preservation across various review teams in-house. And then that leads to a lack of support to advanced data analytics capabilities for comprehensive cross-application analysis that we have been facing. So therefore, there is a need for modernization and structured assessment that we felt within the Office of Bioequivalence at OGD. So that brings me to the great platform that we have been using, Generic Drug Structured Assessment, BE tool. So it represents the fundamental modernization of BE assessments of ANDAs. And as I mentioned, it is a paradigm shift to the traditional narrative reviews to structured, standardized digital assessment processes. It is developed by OGD at FDA's CEDAR and is supported by Office of Business Informatics to address increasing regulatory demands and modernization needs. This is an enterprise-level solution which uses Nexus as an APN platform to enhance the consistency, standardization, and efficiency in ANDA reviews. And this serves dual purposes, as I mentioned. It is a very smart review tool, and two, it provides valuable knowledge management system. So the little bit about system architecture and implementation status. So this platform, as I mentioned, is built within the Nexus APN platform, is an enterprise-level solution which provides dynamic and interactive collaboration capabilities. And then the timeline, as I mentioned, it started in end of 2022. And through its plan, we are currently in version 2.2, which was introduced in August of this year. And as I mentioned, this is a structured approach. So it replaces a lot of unstructured narrative reviews that we have been doing in past with organized, standardized data collection and analysis. So the current status, I would like to showcase that we have fully implemented it in Office of Bioequivalence at OGD with approximately 232 A&D assessments that have been completed using this tool within the first 3 years of its implementation, which demonstrates the successful adoption of the platform. And with regular version updates, we ensure that there is continuous enhancement and that incorporates user feedback and also technological improvement for optimal performance. Now, there are a lot of technical solutions, as I've already mentioned, but just to showcase few. One is the data mapping capabilities. So the automated population of review templates, which uses submitted data from different ECTD tables and also concentration and PK data. Also the language library integration, which incorporates standardized language options for common review sections, deficiency databases, and also executive summaries to ensure consistency within the entire review template. And also internal system integration. So we have integrated different internal platforms into this tool for comprehensive data access. And there is also user-friendly interface for this tool. I don't have any slide to showcase specifically the tool, how the interface looks, but it has a structured digital platform that reduces conventional cut, copy, and paste operations while maintaining assessment quality and thoroughness. So various salient benefits and strategic alignment for this tool is, one is the regulatory decision-making. So it empowers informed and consistent decisions through structured data presentation. And then it also provides uniform review quality. As we have heard from our session 1 talks, there needs to be a lot of consistency. So it's standardized assessment processes. It ensures uniform review quality across all the different divisions. And then it also reduces review time based on the streamlined workflows and also resource requirements. And as I mentioned, there is a systematic capture and organization of institutional knowledge for future references that has been setting up as a precedence. And last but not the least, it also aligns with OGD's 5-year priorities to modernize the generic drug program until 2028. So with that, I would also now provide a brief on what we are working on right now on advanced analytics and future integration into this tool. So to begin with, we are incorporating different statistical analysis and reporting generation environment for enhanced PK data analysis. Then we are also using a BE toolhouse that is centralized access to SAS codes and also analytical tools directly within the platform for streamlined workflow and also future integration with other databases. We are also incorporating a BE data hub. So that means we are providing personal storage folders for the assessors so that they can only have read-only access to shared data sets and results from other applications. And last but not the least, we have AI potential and AI applications. So future development within these tools and also different versions may include artificial intelligence for automated data population of user interface elements and enhanced review efficiency. Now, going back on ELSA, I know a lot have been talked about ELSA and people want to know more, but I just have a couple of slides. So as Rob mentioned in session 1, ELSA has been introduced and it's a generative AI chat tool, which was developed only internally for the FDA employees in a high security Go cloud environment, and it was introduced mid this year. The core AI capabilities of ELSA is it is an information retrieval tool, which also helps in the document preparation, helps in answering questions of the reviewers, process automation, and also cross-referencing functions. It does some of the data analysis work for a lot of review work. And it also integrates with existing FDA systems and database to support higher level decision-making and complex regulatory issues. And we also have a lot of working groups which are working efficiently to cross office and also cross divisional teams, leading implementation with focus on B assessment enhancements. We are at the exploratory stage, so we have not validated, we are still validating, but we have not finalized any of these applications of ELSA. So here on this slide is just a representation of what we have been working with the use of ELSA. So we are using the tool to understand the meeting request, because as we know, there has been a lot of information submitted at this stage, at a very prior stage of submission. ELSA has been, we are still using it to draft some of the sections within the BE assessment template, and also to get additional support of understanding in terms of literature mining for drug product information, and also the PK data and statistical analysis. And last but not the least, we are also using ELSA, as Jean mentioned in the panel discussion. There are a lot of document library which are inbuilt within ELSA. So we are taking that advantage from the tool and using it to understand what all guidance interpretation and policy interpretation can be performed. So now I would take a step back and want a help or support from industry, how industry can help. And I think in session 1, there have been a lot of discussion there, but just to give a brief overview. So how industry can help, right? First is data quality and standardization. So enhance the data submission formats. What we need is provide BE data in standardized structure formats, which will facilitate AI model training and validation. Then we will also request industry to provide technical collaboration and feedback on AI tool development. So share insights on practical implementations, challenges, and also opportunities from the applicant perspective. We encourage industry to participate in such workshops as in today, and meetings, and engage in different public forums discussing different AI implementation in regulatory science. And last but not the least, we also encourage in different pilot programs, so engage in different proof of concept studies that Rob mentioned earlier in the session 1. And what are the future vision of this session and also the conferences? We need AI-powered platforms that provide instant preliminary BE assessment upon data submission, so flagging potential issues and suggesting corrective actions. So basically, we request the applicants to submit structured data. That's what we need at this time, and also validate the information that has been submitted. And then we also want the predictive BE modeling during the drug product development. So machine learning algorithms that predicts the BE outcome based on the formulation characteristics. As we heard that there was some understanding or usage of AI on the dissolution profiles and also the dissolution data that has been collected in session 1. And so that also can be used to train the different model and also help in terms of conducting different in vivo studies. And then the outlier detection and also the data integrity verification. So we need advanced AI systems that automatically identify such statistical outliers or also potential any data manipulation, and also protocol deviations in the B studies with higher accuracy than current methods that have been used. And last but not the least, the vision would be a comprehensive AI system that simultaneously evaluate in vitro dissolution data, PK parameters, and also clinical endpoints to provide holistic BE assessments. With that, I will summarize. I know we have a great session here, but FDA is modernizing BE reviews by integrating AI tools to make the assessment process faster and more accurate than the past manual methods, as I mentioned. Industry partnerships are essential for success, with applicants contributing standardized and structured data and participating in pilot programs to help train and validate AI systems. Data quality improvements are critical, as companies need to submit information in consistent and structured format that AI system can effectively process and learn from. And this collaboration will benefit everyone by reducing review times, improving assessment accuracy, and helping both FDA reviewers and applicants make better decisions about bioequivalence. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajan, for his presentation. Now it's our lunch time. So we have by plan, we have 1 hour for lunch, so we will get started at 12:45. Thanks. So first of all, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the lunch and the conversation with your friends and colleagues. Let's continue our AI journey. As a first presentation, after lunch, I would like to share our work regarding leveraging generative AI to support regulatory assessment. Now AI has become a buzzword and gained popularity in recent years. However, AI is not a new concept. Then given the time, I won't be able to go through all the details in this chart, but I have to mention one name, Dr. Jeffrey Hinton. I hope by introducing his contribution, we can have a glance of where our current AI comes from, because the AI we are having now did not come from nowhere. So needless to say, he received a Turing Award, Nobel Prize in physics. His contribution actually marked every milestone advancement in the AI development. One example is back to 1980s. He is one of the inventors to develop the algorithm called the backpropagation. The backpropagation algorithm really enables the effective training for the multi-layer neural network, which immediately leads to we call the deep neural network, or sometimes we call the deep learning. So one perfect example for deep learning is the success of AlphaGo, which was quite famous a few years ago. And another contribution he made is about hardware. So while he was studying the deep neural network, he found and advocated that GPU is much more efficient in training the multi-layer, or we call the deep learning algorithm, than CPU. His advocacy actually saved quite a famous company called NVIDIA. At the moment, NVIDIA was manufacturing the video card for video games. With his competitors, they kind of struggle to survive, but now they become the empire because the pioneering role in the AI area. So with those contributions from both software and hardware, we see after a few years, we see a kind of a background model for the large language model we call the transformer, and also his famous paper called "Attention is All You Need." And then after a few years, we saw another model called BERT, then ChatGPT. Then I guess we are quite familiar with the rest of the stories. So, but his story does not end there. In 2023, he left Google and he became the biggest voice to remind the risk of AI development. Sometimes I really think he is an Oppenheimer in the AI age. So I hope really those funny, tiny story can entertain you guys, everyone here, and really give a snapshot of the rich history of AI development. So as I said, AI is not a new concept. So same here, AI is not new to OGD either. Actually, in the morning, Rob already provide similar slides talking about what we have done since 2018, even 2017, what we have invested for the AI project. Here, I list a few highlighted projects. I won't go through every project. If you have interest to know more, feel free to talk offline, or you can find more information in the publication on the bottom. So in spite of the rich history of AI development, but nowadays, when we talk about AI, 99% we are talking about the generative AI. It sounds a little bit unfair to the other development in the AI part, but generative AI really carry the unique property or advantage for our daily work. So I share some feeling when I work on the generative AI. The first one is generative AI bridge the gap between humans and the machines. So think about it, a few years back when you want computer to do something for you, you have to learn particular programming language, Python, R, MATLAB, or whatever you need to learn. But now, the coming up of a generative AI really kind of removed the hurdle of the communication between human and the machine. And the second point I want to mention is, needless to say, AI can really help us eliminate the repetitive task. Also, they can initiate fresh ideas. If you are using AI, I'm not sure you have I believe everyone have a similar feeling. It's sometimes we think they are our assistant, but eventually they become our mentor. They teach us a lot of things. And last point I want to share is that given all the advancement, we think generative AI really can help us drive the workflow automation for greater efficiency, consistency, and quality. So this page shows the AI strategy and initiative in the OGD. So I categorize all the work most of the work into the three circles. First circle, as also Dr. Robert Lamberg also mentioned, we actually need to emphasize the importance of AI data infrastructure, because that provide the reliability and the integrity for the AI model and his outcome. And the second circle is AI-powered workflow automation. As I mentioned, with the advantage of current generative AI, it's quite intuitive. We want to think AI can help us to streamline the workflow during our work, especially for those labor-intensive work. The last part is AI-enhanced quantitative medicine. In this part, we want to utilize generative AI, to help us upgrade, if possible, the current or mainstream tools to support the quantitative medicine. So for the first circle, AI data infrastructure, we want to have reliable data as a foundation of AI success, including the sufficient accuracy, completeness, consistency. And in the multiple case, when we want to build sufficient data, we want to gather data from the different sources. So data standardization and the seamless integration across those sources is also must to have. So with the data, we also need to have advanced information retrieval method so that we can quickly access the relevant data set and also knowledge. So with that require instead of data itself, we also have a sufficient indexing and metadata tagging. Also, sometimes not only the matching or rule-based matching, we also want to have a semantic-based matching. So that require AI itself to do the knowledge extraction. And also, of course, we need a user-friendly query interface so that our user, it's convenient for our user to use. So one example for this effort is the construction of a PK data warehouse. So we aim to build a PK data warehouse to host all the PK data, PKBE data in the FDA, so that this data warehouse become a must-go place whenever you want to do PK analysis or PK-related meta-analysis. So that requires that this data warehouse has a curated executable PK data set, which means the user can immediately use the data. And also with sufficient metadata, sufficient supportive information from a multiple data source. So whenever you have a query or needs, you can quickly get the data based on those metadata and the information. So we already see some use cases for the PK data warehouse. One is for data integrity check. So we can gather all the PK data sets for the drug product of interest to understand the data patterns within and across the application, potentially flagging out the suspicious data and the signals. Another use case, including more general kind of a meta-analysis to support the regulatory assessment, like a cross-study analysis, cross-study check for BE criteria. And as I mentioned, for the successful PK data warehouse, we should have a flexible query tool. So I list a few examples. So what kind of flexibility can be provided? Say you can query the PK data based on the specific formulation design by the particular CRO, particular clinical study site, clinical study design, and so on, even some customized need. And then now I move on to the second circle, which is AI-powered workflow automation. Under this area, the AI team will work with domain expert to define the domain-specific workflow aligned with the regulatory and scientific needs, no matter they already have a SOP in written or no. But to implement the workflow automation, we have to have identify this kind of workflow or SOP. Then with that, we translate the workflow into clear business requirement to guide AI-driven automation, which means with the established workflow, we want to understand which part or the whole workflow can be automated or part of it can be automated, especially for those labor-intensive and the time-consuming part. Then with that, then AI team can start to develop and deploy the AI tools to implement the workflow efficiently, consistently, and reliably. One example I want to share here is the development AI tool for BCS determination. A little bit background, BCS classification provides critical information, for example, for the biowaiver consideration. However, no comprehensive BCS database currently exists. And also, manual extraction is time-consuming and labor-intensive. So we are thinking AI-powered tool for automated BCS determination will be significantly accelerate our daily regulatory work. So then this slide shows the workflow we identified when we work with a domain expert. With that, we will apply so-called agentic AI approach to implement the workflow. I know someone here or in the online user, they may have a different understanding on the agentic AI approach. That's okay. We can discuss offline. So with the agentic AI approach, we will follow the workflow. First, identify the relevant documents. Usually they are clean farm, biopharm document review. Then we identify how many API in this product. Then goes to, we need to determine whether they already have a conclusive classification or description there. If there is, then job is done. Then if no, then we will go to the down to the following workflow to start to determine the solubility and the permeability using the large language model. Then finally determine the BCS classification. I want to say the beautiful part of this workflow is that we not only provide a final answer to our user, we also provide a step-by-step reasoning, supporting document and auto reference for our users so that they can evaluate every steps. So make a decision, say, okay, you are doing wrong, you are doing right, and then make the final decision making. So with this project, is under the internal validation. This tool will facilitate the construction of a BCS classification. And another thing I want to mention is extracted data which support the BCS determination will also significantly enhance the quantitative modeling development. And rather than BCS, we will have a more ongoing project, exciting project for the workflow automation to support the pre-ANDA review, formulation assessment, product-specific guidance development, control correspondence assessment. And I also want to particularly share this slide with everyone here. Actually, this slide comes from the discussion in our session preparation meeting. I was asked, with your developed automation tool, then how you evaluate your tool? I think it's an excellent question. I want to clarify here. So the AI automation tools are designed to support, but not participate in the decision-making process. The tool will enhance workflow efficiency by automating the labor-intensive work. They accelerate the collection, curation of the information for better support FDA reviewers, so that their performance depends primarily on the accuracy and the completeness of the information retrieved. Okay, then I'm entering the last circle, which is AI-enhanced quantitative medicine. Given the time, I won't read every point here. Basically, we just want to say the resource and expert gaps in the modeling simulation still challenging for generic drug industry. So the AI, it's a good chance we can utilize them to help us to build this part of or fill the gaps. So one example I want to share is a PyDarwin, also mentioned in Dr. Lamberg's slides, which is a machine learning enhanced automated population PK model building toolbox. We have done this work with our external experts to get things done. So the motivation is a traditional population model, PK model selection often rely on the stepwise method, try and error nature, frequently missing the true optimal models. So PyDarwin, we're using machine learning to conduct the robust and the global searching across the bigger model space, so that the reduced labor-intensive try and error modeling, they improve speed and the reliability. And more important, we released it as a free open source Python package, so everybody can enjoy the tool. So as a conclusion, the takeaway is the usability of AI tools rely on strong data infrastructure, sufficient information retrieval ability, and good understanding of domain knowledge. And the last one is efficient workflow automation by the agentic AI system. So that successful AI tool will significantly facilitate high quality and efficient regulatory assessment. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. And also, I want to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Joshua Apgar.
Thank you very much. So I will sort of preface this by saying I am not an AI scientist or an AI engineer. I'm a mechanistic modeler, QSP in particular. But increasingly, we've been using AI to solve a lot of last mile problems in the mechanistic modeling space. In particular, once the model has been generated and all the ODEs have compiled, actually taking that and turning it into a result and using that to inform a decision is still sort of a very labor-intensive part of the process. And oftentimes, it's much more labor-intensive than actually constructing the model. And so looking at various ways to sort of improve workflows, to use them to make them part of a much more routine use within pharma. So there's a really nice paper by Benjamin Ribba sort of talking about AI in QSP, and I think it applies much more broadly in the area of mechanistic modeling. And he kind of defines sort of an inner view, which is sort of staying within the box of things that we're already doing and using AI as a way of accelerating those. But there's also sort of this outer view, which is to say, what are those things that we cannot currently do with modeling and simulation that AI sort of extends those capabilities into new areas? So I'm going to be mostly talking about this first box. I think these are the sort of much more near-term opportunities, but I'll sort of give one example of the sort of outer box of kind of going beyond what we can do with the modeling simulation alone. And so not surprisingly, I think we've hit on a lot of these same topics from other speakers. These are things like time to develop, document, generate model reports. Model validation, I think, is one, particularly as these models become much more complicated, and also because these need to be kept up to date as new data is generated. And then the last one is really looking at the sort of outer view, which is that these models tend to be very biomolecular, but they don't extend all the way to clinical endpoints. So, accelerating regulatory writing, this is something that we've been working a lot on, really incorporating LLMs into, applications like Microsoft Word. And here it's around, a combination of the LLMs, prompt engineering, as well as document templates that are meant to take advantage of it. And I think also, as has been mentioned by many speakers here, what you get back from the LLM is often a good starting point. And so being able to actually both modify the prompt result in a way that's traceable, so you know which parts were generated by the LLM and which parts were generated by a human, and likewise, which parts have been reviewed. And especially as these documents get very large and complicated, it can be easy to lose track of what's actually been written by an expert. Sort of more in my space, I think we're automating a lot of things like documentation, dataset overviews, and more sort of code generation. And in particular, we've sort of done analysis, more than 75% of the code we write is doing sort of one-off tasks like generating a figure, generating a table. Oftentimes, these are written once, run once, and then used. This is also a very common source of errors. And so being able to automate things like, I have two figures, I want to place the legend on the right-hand side, and using that kind of code generation, while not super exciting, actually has been one of the biggest impact activities for us using LLMs, rather than the sort of very hard problems around the sort of developing the models themselves. And so I think, kind of one of the new areas that we've been exploring more recently is the use of AI for model validation. And so, some of it I think has been touched on previously here around using AI as a way of generating validation data sets, combing through literature, combing through documents, curating, regularizing the data. But in the, mechanistic models also rely on the plausibility of the mechanisms. Are these mechanisms described in literature? Are they supported by our general understanding of these mechanisms? And that's also just as important a source of validation, because the whole point of a mechanistic model is it's supposed to reflect the mechanisms that we know that are working. And so we started developing methods to go through models and basically turn model mechanisms in a model into a prompt, and basically ask, like, is it true that this mechanism, has been described in literature and would be suitable to include in a PBPK model, in a QSP model, whatever the model type is. And then what you get back is sort of a summary of what the literature evidence is behind this mechanism. We're using RAG architectures here, so we actually have access to the primary literature at the same time, and so we're also able to provide citations to the evidence. And so again, this is the idea that we're sort of essentially, this is the type of activity you should be doing when you're building your model. I think oftentimes does not get done when people are building a model, especially as you're never really sure whether this mechanism is going to make it into the final version. And so it's really in the space of kind of encouraging good behavior, saying we should document all these things, and then also a way of us sort of really tracking that we've actually done that evaluation, that we've done it in a comprehensive way. And here, like with the other, we also provide, a step for where a human could come in and confirm the validation answer is correct, check the references, and then we could sort of mark that this has been reviewed by a human, or if it needs to be edited, that it's been modified, and we know which parts have been modified by a person versus which has been generated by the LLM. So we can really trace back the source of each of these things. And so, if we come back, like when mechanistic models, get presented, the sort of assumptions are always brought up as one of the sort of key considerations of the validity or the weight of evidence for the model, but it's an area where sort of technology really hasn't touched very much. And I think generative AI is a place where allows us to be a lot more comprehensive, a lot less unbiased about these models. It also, once these are constructed, allows a reviewer to then ask questions of the model and say, okay, this mechanism's in there. Were there other mechanisms that could have been chosen instead? Or, are there sources that disagree with this assessment? And so by being sort of very comprehensive here, we now make this something that can actually be interacted with, not just by posing questions to the modeler, but by asking questions directly of the model. I think the biological map creation is another area. Typically, modelers who are building models are not, or certainly modelers who are using someone else's models, are not necessarily experts in all of the detailed mechanisms in the model that go into it. And so oftentimes when the model needs to be extended, either to modify a particular pharmacology, whether there's sort of a new result, there's sort of new information that's now been published that wasn't included in the original model, using AI as a way of sort of generating that map and asking, how might I expand this model to connect this to that, or I have a new result that does not match with my model. What are some plausible mechanisms that might reconcile my result and my model? And those can be hypotheses for model generation. I think particularly with these types of models, oftentimes we're asking the same kind of question over and over again in the context of each parameter, in the context of each reaction, in the context of each data set or each mechanism. And so a tool that we've been exploring, I think in the kind of realm of agentic AI is prompt chaining. And so essentially here what we're doing is we're breaking complex queries down into kind of stepwise elements where we can allow us to sort of really refine the prompt to get individual pieces of data. Particularly in these types of models, oftentimes we're not working with large tabulated data sets. We're extracting individual parameters from reports or from figures. And so this allows us to be much more granular, much more accurate. And then once those prompts are developed, then we want to be able to reuse them over and over again against many different similar sort of questions. And ultimately, then we're going to synthesize the results of those back together into a coherent answer to the question. So here, you figure out does this study have, does this paper have more than one study or one study in it? What are the list of all the assays for each assay? What's the matrix that was used? What was the LLOQ? So it's sort of anytime you're asking for each or for every, or you want sort of those combinations of terms to come in, this allows us to write sort of very simple prompts, but then combine them together to get much more complex behavior. So this might be a little small on the screen, but just sort of showing here kind of an example of prompt chaining. So here, if I want to get the population of every state, I could start with a list of all the states, and I can ask what the population is. I could also feed that list of states into what's the capital of that state, and then I could start using combinations of populations and state capitals and putting those things together into sort of a final report. So kind of, a more biological example here is if I've got a set of cell types that are involved in a particular pharmacology and a particular pathophysiology, I can ask questions of each of those cell types, whether they've been activated, whether they've been deactivated. I can ask about them in the context of various drugs. And so it's really up sort of at each step, I'm building kind of lists of responses, and then allows me to kind of combine them together in kind of an iterative way. A little bit of a subtle point is you can actually point each one of these questions at different data sources. So it may be in some cases you want to pull from a certain authoritative data source versus another. You may want to ask the question of the general literature. And so each prompt you may want to sort of customize the algorithm parameters or other to sort of get the best result on that prompt. And so again, it's sort of like taking these very complex problems and sort of breaking them down into smaller steps. Here we're sort of saying that we're modeling agentic behavior because I think these really aren't agentic AI systems, but you get a lot of that sort of capability of agentic systems, but in a sort of much more understandable framework where it's a lot easier to trace how they work through the layers and understand how you get to your final answer as a way of sort of confirming that they're working for reasons that make sense. So here's an example. You start with a publication, and you develop various prompts for what's the Cmax, what's the route of administration, are there any adverse effects, how many drugs are mentioned in the study. I want to do each of these questions in the context of each of these drugs, maybe each of these drugs, each of these dose frequencies. And so each one of these individual questions can be written as a prompt, but then we can kind of combine them together through these frameworks to generate sort of a more comprehensive result where we've included all of these. And so I'll say that originally this was developed internally for us to help develop our Codex database, where essentially we were going manually through clinical trial results and putting them into and regularizing the data into spreadsheets. And this was being done largely by hand. And sort of basically taking the techniques and the methods that were being used there, it's starting to automate these into these kind of frameworks to allow us to start to incorporate much larger sets of clinical trials and really expand it out. Again, there's still a very significant QC step at the end because you want to, each one of these things you want to know for sure that they're right. And so, but a lot of times that last QC step is, is much, much less work than the overall collating and assembling of the data to begin. So, and so for each of these, ultimately the goal is not to just find a number, it's not to find to generate a table, is we want to take these and we want to put them together into workflows that ultimately lead into a finalized report. And so here, we've, setting up these kind of frameworks where we can use different LLMs, different prompts as a way of going all the way through to the final report. And so I'll just do this last example very quickly because I think I'm at time or maybe a little bit over. Is that going beyond, I think, what I've talked about here, which is really accelerating the kind of things that we can do already. Using AI and ML, we're also starting to go and sort of augment mechanistic models and really connect it through into clinical endpoints that are really sort of beyond the biomolecular. And so really what we're doing is we're using QSP models as a way of sort of inferring the missing data that would be needed to use these sort of more ML approaches, where generally we have lots of trials with outcomes. We've got a small number of trials with biomarkers. QSP models are very good at predicting biomarkers. They're not very good at predicting outcomes. Essentially, by using these systems in a hybrid fashion, we're able to go all the way from mechanisms all the way through to outcomes. And so really a kind of result you can't get with either an ML approach or a QSP approach alone. I'm doing very short shrift of this, so I'll just sort of reference there's a nice YouTube video on this work if people are interested in more information about that. That, I will turn it over. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Apgar presentation. The next speaker will be Dr. Pravin Jadhav. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I guess good morning, good evening for those online. My name is Pravin Jadhav. First of all, thanks for the invitation. My presentation here would be with the perspective of a former reviewer. I was a reviewer at OCP for about 10 years, then moved over to pharma. I spent about 10 years in 2 pharma companies, and last 5 years I've been with Vivpro, and as a company, we have 2 Gen AI softwares that we built. So what I'm going to do here is give you sort of a high-level overview of what I think are some practical use of AI. What I think about AI is what is the problem we're trying to solve. And I'll start by and this may have been repeated in the morning, so apologies if these are some repetitions, some key pain points that are facing the generic drug development, especially the complex generic products. Then I'll talk about three things from my vantage point where I stand today in terms of what a company can do to build an AI-first culture in their drug development program, to build a winning strategy with respect to time, increasing probability of success, and how to deal with the questions you might get from regulatory agencies. And I'll put that together with a practical case, how one can use AI and build AI-first culture. And I'll end my remarks with call to action. So several of you are probably aware of this, and this is slightly older data, but even my recent review is telling me it's pretty much the same. 12% of the drugs that get actually filed ever get approved in the first cycle. That means a lot of complete response letter. This is not news to a lot of folks. Even I looked at in preparation for this presentation this year, and this is nice data get published on OGD website, so thank you for that. 460 applications that were submitted in 2025, actually because of kind of how cycles work, 870 complete response were given. Of course, so some of the 870 might have been previously filed. Among that, only 56 actually, so out of 462, only 56 were actually the complex generic products. And this is another little older data, but it's probably still valid. 37 of the approved generics are not launched ever to the public. So my next set, what I'll talk about is the three practical use cases. They come from a little bit of innovative drug development, but I do believe this can apply to the pharma drug development, and this is with a focus of softwares that we have. Again, I'm not going to give screenshots, this is not a sales pitch, but how we can actually think differently. So the biggest, as Dr. Hu mentioned in his presentation, right now we are all talking about Gen AI for a reason, because it is developing at a pace that you and I cannot imagine. Where it was 1 year ago versus where it was 2 years ago. So we have been using Gen AI since 2020 when world didn't know ChatGPT. And when ChatGPT came to public and GPT AI came to public, we were able to prioritize in a week. I was really humbled earlier this year when GPT-4, one of the four models came. The reason is I have spent 19 years in drug development, and the question it would have taken me about an hour or two to synthesize, this GPT was able to do in 1 second. That told me that world is changing very fast. Previously, it was a little hard. I had to really prompt and really had to think what I'm asking and things like that. No longer. What does that mean to the drug development or complex generic products? Is think about now modeling your knowledge, not just your data. We heard about PK modeling and all that good, great things, but also model your knowledge. You need to know what has worked for others. Machines are really good at that. What mistakes have others done? There are, 2,000 plus product-specific guidances. Of course, you can read this traditional method of PDF by PDF and highlighter by highlighter. Gen AI can do this for a second. You still need to be good at asking questions. On our product, for example, there are 3.2 million pages of FDA we have actually scoured and converted to knowledge. Or within that, there are 70,000 pages of guidance. This idea that you need a lot of experience to tell somebody what to do is no longer the case. And for some of our old timers, this may be a shocking thing, like my experience means nothing. I'm sorry, that is true. For example, I just looked up in preparation for this presentation, there is a PhD guidance up for comment on regulations.gov. There are 518 comments. You can go one by one. Maybe in a day or two, you'll know what public is saying. Just ask a question, it'll summarize the whole thing for you, create a table, whatever formats you need. Your job is to now think. That's what the future will be. So my one action item is pretty much, again, not for the sake of pushing, but our product, but I think pretty much everybody should be using some intelligent Gen AI tools to measure success. Previous presenter talked about automation of report writing. This is another practical use case. The amount of time that pharma companies spend in report writing has been cut down in like fractions. So we have one software that called Ragan. We are able to, given a clinical study data, we are able to produce CSR in 30 minutes. Of course, with the review and everything, in a day, you have a CSR ready. Because anything you can write on paper saying, I do my job this way, machines can do it. Gen AI can take those instructions. What used to be previously, right? If I see this, else do that, else if do that, that's no longer necessary. The machines can read your previous product, how you wrote a CSR, don't have to do anything, just feed them, and it understands how to do it. So this is another one where, if between the previous slide and this slide, the biggest thing I think I would recommend is to adopt in the AI first culture is increase think time. Give your staff, yourself, more time to think, more time to analyze, because AI can do all of that what experience did, or what sort of, just by knowing certain functional area processes did. And this is a concept we are building. Put your application through a CRL risk radar. This seems to be one of the key pain points of for pharma. It's essentially, previously, at least in pharma, you'd hire a bunch of consultants. They'll tell you where the gaps are and all that. This is, again, AI is really good at that. The consultants may have had, no disrespect to any consultants, including myself, I am one of them. I might have read 1,000 CRL letters, sure. But there are 3,000 CRL letters in open public. Not only the the letters are in public, the reviews are in public. Who has time to, our knowledge, or actually I wouldn't say even if I've challenged somebody's sort of mental capacity, who has knowledge to synthesize 50 million pages that are there on all regulatory websites? It's impossible. AI is really good at that. So all in all, you can basically push your application through and ask, what's the impact assessment? We do this for guidances and things like that. And this is my last kind of bit in terms of AI first strategy. In your design selection, build Gen AI intelligent search strategies. Design your program that is AI powered. The protocol, the CSR, post-log can be all AI driven. That gives you more time to think and leads to hopefully better quality of your application. So in conclusion, I applaud FDA on the recent transparency initiatives. That has been really good for us in terms of trying to synthesize what are some commonalities that has happened on the innovative drug side. I hope that will happen on the generic slide. But if FDA doesn't do it, I think companies can come together and share these, even redacted ones, to learn where the gaps are, what is the agency looking for, and for companies build AI first culture, treat your document as knowledge, and build that. But at the same time, don't throw AI, and that may be the setup for the second presentation. Don't throw AI at everything. Build pilots, repeat it, make sure you track proper success metric, proper KPIs before kind of building whole thing. And for people, I would say my advice is the jobs, as they say, people who use AI will do better in the future world. I think I would add to that saying people who know how to fix AI will do really better well, because what will happen is AI will do mistakes. They will not know certain context. Who's going to train them? It's us. So our knowledge is still valid, but the idea of being able to just know something and regurgitate something is gone. It's understanding what the AI output is and how to fix it is probably the the future of professions for folks like ourselves. Thank you. Hopefully that was a little useful to you, and looking forward to the panel presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Jadhav, for his presentation. Now, welcome our last speaker, Dr. Devin Pastoor.
Hey, everyone. Hopefully I'll use this pointer thing right. My name's Devin. I am the Chief Technology and Product Officer at A2AI. My background was I did my PhD in pharmacometrics. I kind of got the tech bug, though, and I spent the last decade transitioning to a more technology-focused role, of which over the last couple years has had a deeper and deeper flavor around AI and Gen AI. So for my talk, I kind of want to flip the script away from how does AI streamline your workflow to how do we streamline actually adopting AI within the organization. I kind of wear a number of hats myself. We work with a lot of companies that are trying to figure this out, from kind of top 10 enterprise, huge organizations down to small biotechs. And so I've kind of gained some perspective that hopefully I can share around what we're seeing kind of work well and some of the failure points. I think the first observation that I can state, if I get this to go right, click. Green button, green button. There we go. All right, excellent, got it. All right, so if you go talk to any company right now, they are going to tell you they're absolutely adopting AI. But in reality, if you go talk to the people within the organization, their definition of what it means to adopt AI, and equally, if not more importantly, what it means to successfully adopt AI can be dramatically different. Scientists want access to better tools and better models. Executives want more productivity. Regulators may want explainability or understanding how things can be tested and verified. None of these perspectives are wrong, but together they do show that these personas have different kind of thought processes going on and what's meaningful to them. And this diversity of expectations naturally is going to create friction. And so many of these emergent AI challenges that we're seeing are not really AI challenges, they're alignment challenges. And for many enterprises, alignment challenges are not a novel thing. This is something that we constantly are dealing with as we have these diverse stakeholder groups. But there's a couple things that make this kind of alignment around AI different. The first one is the breadth. I think it's a fair statement to say that very little from a technological perspective has ever hit the breadth of an organization so rapidly, everywhere from HR to scientists to operations to IT and security. Everyone has a potential stake in this AI game. In addition to that, the urgency, as a couple of the other speakers have mentioned, there is this pressure to feel like you are somebody that is adopting AI and looking around, especially the kind of social media presence of companies talking about their successful adoption of AI, and you're looking internally at how things are going, and you're going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So we have this intense pressure to figure out where to use AI, yet we're operating in a domain that doesn't fit our traditional models, how we have historically managed risk, especially when it comes to kind of technology initiatives. And so when we think about streamlining adoption of AI across the organization, I encourage you to think about, is AI adoption a technology operations problem, or is it an R&D activity? And fundamentally, how you view this lens is going to kind of trigger how you as an organization may approach AI initiatives within your organization. You know, for decades, organizations have figured out how to run a technology operations project. There are kind of governance teams or committees or other folks dealing with things like What kind of infrastructure do you need? How are you going to safeguard data? How do you develop the processes to make sure that you're doing these in systems, whether they're GXP or non-GXP, to make sure that they can scale appropriately and people have access to this? And yet, these frameworks don't map to AI, particularly generative AI. You can't query it like a database. You can't look at the data inside of it. It doesn't execute prescriptive algorithms that you can yourself look at and audit and interrogate. So when you interact with that large language model, you're not really retrieving data, you're not executing code, you're activating this form of kind of computational memory where the processing capabilities and the information are inextricably fused together. And this mix of reasoning and recall and pattern matching changes depending on the model, depending on how you prompt it, depending on the data that's going in that augments whatever your query was. And the implication, I think, is fundamentally this. AI systems do not behave like the technology systems we've spent decades mastering. Our operational instincts to standardize, to isolate, and control don't apply. And so my take, and where we have seen organizations be more successful, is when they don't treat it like a technology operations problem right now, they treat it like R&D. Organizations that lean in with that R&D flavor are outperforming. And an example of what I mean by that is some of the companies, especially when it comes to things like coding, are immediately looking to apply these technology operations patterns. We're seeing IT groups where they are looking to apply the playbook that they know how to do. They're going to go out, they're going to assess some vendor products, they're going to consolidate on one or two, and then they're going to try to roll that out across the organization as a preferred tool. We use GitHub Copilot as our preferred AI tool across the enterprise. And yet, when we see these in action, the fact of the matter is that these AI products and these tools are evolving so rapidly that these playbooks, these timeframes that it takes to do a lot of these enterprise adoptions do not work to not only stay cutting edge, but to stay any degree of streamlined where you're also getting the type of impact that you're hoping for. If you kind of keep track of the AI news at all, MIT released a report earlier this year where they said that 95% of the AI pilot projects were failing. Now, of course, what does failing mean? You know, what metrics were used for that? There's much debate that can be had about that. But organizations are absolutely looking to apply that, but just be conscientious around how you are dealing with this. And so even if we take this R&D mindset, we still have limited time and energy. Pravin mentioned that concept of maximizing how much time you spend thinking about these things. And especially in pharma, we are not necessarily technology organizations. The historical playbook has been to buy generally where possible. And so this brings me to my next point, is that there is kind of this AI gold rush going on, especially among vendors, both ones that are kind of proselytizing new AI products, but also ones trying to add AI into the existing products. And these AI applications themselves can become very complicated beasts. I don't really have time to go through this in detail, but the simple statement is that where the AI sits in an application can be very diverse. It can be a small augmented capability, or it can be foundational to how an application works. And being able to assess a product or otherwise comes down to an extent, do you understand what that product is doing, how it works, what kind of risks you'd be absorbing by using it? And so my kind of call to action that dovetails nicely into the comment that Robert made earlier today is that I believe that even if you are an organization that leans on, from a technology perspective, buying, you must do some building when it comes to AI. And you must do some building because the experiential knowledge that you gain from learning how to interact with these generative AI capabilities, what it means to have a context window, what it means to synthesize data, how you test these things, what kind of evaluation frameworks are present, is so foundational to being able to appreciate the kind of ecosystem of products emerging and to be able to appreciate these rapid changes that are continuing to emerge. And so ultimately, to streamline the adoption of AI in your organization does require you to adapt this learning mindset, to treat this not necessarily as a pure technology play, but rather something that has this kind of biological R&D theme of how you're going to be engaging with these systems and how they will change over time. We must understand how the pieces of AI, the nomenclature, if someone says we have a new agentic AI application, what does it mean to be agentic? Taking some time, experimenting with this, building this within your organization helps build musculature that you can leverage in the same way that we as companies have done the same thing with scientific R&D for many, many years. So not only do you need to understand it, be prepared to iterate on it. The pace of change within AI is so dramatic that if your playbook is from assessment to adoption as a 6-month or a 1-year lifetime, by the time you're rolling out something, 4 new iterations and 4 new things have already come to play. This is a novel thing that organizations are kind of struggling to figure out with. And the starting point that you can deal with this is to take that R&D iterative mindset. So ultimately, there's some good news. If you feel like you're behind the curve, I will give you a piece of perspective. Everyone feels that right now. Everyone that I've talked to feels like when they look at what other companies are talking about, what they're doing, that they must be so far behind. But in reality, we're all here on this kind of dawn of a new age of human-computer something interaction. And it's a very exciting time that's going to give us a lot of opportunity to democratize how science can be conducted. And so don't be scared by it, but lean into it with an appreciation of how it works. And so I don't think that organizations that are moving the fastest are going to be the ones that maximize the value. It's ones that are able to adapt and iterate on this pace of change that we're already hitting and I think is going to continue to accelerate. So that, to stay on time, I will kind of conclude and move towards the panel. Thank you all.